I've been an entrepreneur for 12 years and have amassed a personal net worth of north of $2 million, depending on what Bitcoin is doing on any given day. And in this video, I want to share with you the complete transparent story of how I went from selling hats on Facebook to becoming a personal trainer and opening 7 gyms, losing $200,000 on an app, pitching on Shark Tank, and helping investment funds raise $20 million twice. So, who was Jack before business? Well, I grew up in a small country town called Port Hedland. Very isolated place, mining town in basically the middle of nowhere. From there, went to a private school, and in the school, I did all right. I was really good at accounting and economics and sport, like a lot of sport, like any kind of gym rat is, but English wasn't really my strong suit, which is kind of funny given that the words that I've written have generated north of $50 million online. So in terms of school, it was a bit of a mixed bag, but I always had a kind of sneaking suspicion in that the people at school, if they were really good at what they were talking about at, say, economics and all those kinds of things, like why aren't they going and running a business? So I've always had a bit of a distrust in authority, and I was told that at school I was very easily distracted, which kind of led me down a different path, and why I didn't really go down the normal path. I couldn't really deal with having a boss. So I've always kind of worked for myself. I've had a job. I worked at a pub when I was 18 years old, and that lasted about 6 months. And it was when I really started getting into the personal training. So I kind of turned 18, was working at a pub, and then I started a little hat business called Snapback Station, where I bought hats from China for $3 and sold them on Facebook for between 35 and 40. And I'll put some posts that you might be able to see here and here. Of the post, because they're still on Facebook now. And in terms of business, that was kind of my first taste of business, where you could buy something for $3 and sell it for $30, $40 and make a lot of money. Whereas, when you're making $25 an hour serving beers at a pub, you're like, there's got to be a better way. And that thinking of a better way was kind of what drew that emotion to it, right? Like, I'd seen people older than me, they go get jobs, and generally speaking, most people are quite miserable in their jobs, and I didn't really want that. So at the time, before kind of getting into business, it was like, let's get something that you can make more money. Got into sports betting and playing blackjack at the casino, and I've always had that bit of an interest in numbers. Call it autism, call it rainmaking skills, but having that kind of desire to learn about numbers and looking at spreadsheets, and that's how I kind of got into crypto earlier. I saw the numbers, I just saw, hey, this is a massive opportunity. So when it came to the personal training business, it kind of just flowed naturally. I was working with a guy, and he was my first personal trainer when I was 16 or 17 years old, and he was running kind of a PT mentoring business, and that was kind of my first taste of getting into business. And it was like, okay, he's got a successful business, he's training people, and I look at personal training as an industry. It's very saturated, but it's not competitive, because what I've learned is basically people will get their certs, and a bit's changed now from 10, 12 years ago, but people get their certs and never stop, and that's where they kind of stop learning. They don't keep evolving and keep growing as people. And then I got my, obviously, certifications to become a qualified PT, and I was like, hey, this guy Sean, he was super solid, knew a lot of stuff, and he kind of got me really strong as a young kid. So that's kind of the start before business. And when I was talking about personal training, I didn't really realize how much of a business is. It's one of the few businesses where you're expected to do everything. You're expected to do your marketing and your accounting and train the people and do the sales and the customer service. So it's one of those really good first businesses, because you learn all the skills that is required to run bigger businesses, and you actually get that hands-on experience. And growing up, my parents ran their own business, so I kind of had that exposure to what it is to run a business. There was really good months and there was really shit months. And that's kind of one of those things when, if you have got parents that have run their own business, you get kind of that exposure. I never grew up in a place where, we had steady income and steady paychecks. Dad was doing his thing and mum was working for dad. So when I look back to starting that first business, and the goal was to do 20 sessions a week at $50 a week, right? That was going to be $1,000 a week. And as a 18, 19-year-old, that is crazy money. I was like, wow, if I can do that, I can do whatever I want. I can basically work 10 hours a week and make $1,000, because I was charging $100 an hour. So I really had that, okay, that's going to be able to buy me everything and I'll be completely rich, right? And that, in terms of materialistic things that I was looking for, I'm not an overly materialistic guy. I look at I like nice things, sure, 100%, but like the goal was never materialism. The goal was like that freedom. And I think that's what I've always been driven by, is actually getting to a point where I can make money and do what I want. And like last year, I was able to do that, traveled to 13 different countries, lived in Bali, lived in London, traveled through Europe. And I'm like, that kind of the like desire and what drives me is that freedom. And as I kind of get into this story about the gyms and stuff like that, it's funny how you kind of venture away from what it is that you truly want, and what's those kind of emotional drivers for what you actually want out of life. And the funny thing is, when you work for yourself, and if you're like doing AI and you're trying to grow an AI business, like you have the freedom to kind of create your own destiny, which is what I really love about entrepreneurship and building businesses, is that you're not paid for your time, right? You're paid for your outcomes and the results that you can get for yourself or for your clients. And that's one of those super powerful things where you don't usually get that in other jobs. And if you got like a fixed salary, you can get bonuses and all that kind of shit, but you generally get paid for something and it doesn't really matter what you do, right? So that is one of those like key like emotional points when I realize is, hey, I'm actually in control of my own destiny and I can get whatever outcome that I work for. And that's kind of that first business that really taught me how to get it is what I want out of life. When I look at my like business trajectory, the first business was selling hats on Facebook, and that kind of lasted 3 to 4 months, and I made I think about $10,000 or $15,000, something along those lines, and I actually used that money to buy myself a MacBook and to pay for my personal training course. And then started as a personal trainer at the end of 2012. I think it was the 17th of December that I signed the lease for like leasing out the space at the gym, which was a Good Life gym, which is like a chain of gyms in Australia. And then kind of 2013 to 2014, well, 2013 was when I was personal trainer, and kind of it got to August of 2013 and I was kind of capped out. I was doing about 50 sessions a week, from anywhere from $50 to $70 for half an hour. So I was making some really good money, but then I realized I'm kind of like, unless I'm going to work even more, I'm kind of just capped out. And that's obviously with one-on-one, you do get capped out with that. So I met a guy who ended up becoming my business partner of 7 or 8 years. And we're like, hey, why don't we start a boot camp? And the goal with the boot camp was obviously you can train 20 to 30 people at once. So we launched a boot camp on the beach, and we ended up signing up 30 people for it, right? So we were doing 3 sessions a week. And they were paying $50 a week, but we only had to work, an hour and a half for all of those 30 people to come in and train with us 1 hour and a half, 3 times a week, right? So that was kind of the start of the business. And then from there, we kind of got to the start of 2014, and we kind of got back from holidays and all that kind of stuff. And if you know about personal training, generally December, January is that time where most people go on holidays. And we kind of looked at it, was like, shit, our income really dips when people go on holidays because they're not obviously paying you while they're on holidays. So it came around to about February. It was the day after my 20th birthday. And then my business partner called me and said, hey, let's go check out this location. And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm pretty hungover from the night before. And then that day we went and looked at a location, and I will never forget the real estate's name. His name was Paul. And this was my introduction to like a real salesman, right? He hit us with scarcity, he hit us with urgency, he hit us with other people, with competition. He was like, oh, so many people are seeing this, but you guys seem like cool young guys. We'd love to get you put an offer on there, and that, we can take it to the owners and they want to move, and you guys seem like great dudes. So on that day, we ended up signing a lease for 5 years for $50,000 a year. So it was a $250,000 lease, and I signed a check for $16,000 to him on the day. Literally the first day we saw the gym. And like, again, the offer was a bit low. I think they were asking $75,000 or $80,000 a year. So we offered 50, and Paul, the real estate agent, said, yeah, that's like a strong offer. And then the owner came back, and at this stage we were in Vegas for a Facebook marketing mastermind event with a guy named Travis Jones. And if you know kind of Hormozi's story, he talks about learning Facebook ads in Vegas, and I was actually at the same place. So that kind of happened, and this is kind of back in 2014. And we got an email saying, yep, the owners accepted your offer. Your lease starts on the 17th of March. So literally a month after we had signed it, because that's the date that we said. And then again, from that gym business, we basically didn't know what we're doing. I was 20 years old, my business partner was 23 at the time, so we were two kids with a lease running a business, and like looking back on it, I don't even know how we got that lease because I was basically a child. So the gym business was a great business. We started it, we grew it through basically Facebook ads, and back then ads were like 30 or 40 cents a lead, right? And we were selling a $1,200 12-week program, and we just grew it like crazy. We opened, by the end of the second week, we were doing $2,000 a week in that gym, and then it just kept scaling up, and by kind of August, so like 4 months later, 4 or 5 months later, we're doing $10,000 a week as two kids, and we're like, damn, we made it. Like, we got our first $10,000 direct debit we had a weekly debit of $10,000. So then from there, we started hiring staff, and you just kind of learn all these skills. You learn like contracts, you learn legal, you were working with 150, 200 clients across the different offers. And you're just like learning so many people management and people being upset, people not getting results. There's like so many things that you learn. And that was what was really good about that gym business. And then we kind of split the roles. I became kind of marketing, and I was running all the ads and front of house. And then my business partner, he was running legals and contracts and doing payroll and accounts and that kind of thing. So we had two really good split roles in the business. And that's one thing, if you've got a partner, and you're watching this, a business partner that is, make sure that you actually know who's got what role. And if you do that, you'll save yourself a lot of headaches and a lot of confusion. But if you don't do that, it'll be a bit of a shit show, because at the start we didn't really know, and then we sat down and was like, oh, what are you good at? What are you good at? What do you want to do? And that makes a lot of difference. And then from there, we had the one gym until about 2016. So about 2.5 years. And then we wanted to kind of scale, we hit the $1 million mark just before my 22nd birthday. And then we were like, okay, cool. How do we scale? So by that stage, we'd work with a bunch of different mentors. We really learned Facebook ads from the first mentor. And then a second mentor, he'd sold a company for $100 million. So he was kind of giving us more on structure, and he gave us some really good advice that I want to share with you. And that is you're not running a gym business, you're a marketing agency that runs gyms. And that was kind of a massive unlock that I look at it. And now I look at whatever business that you're in or you're serving, you're a marketing agency, a software company, and then you sell cakes. Or you're a marketing agency and a software company and you give legal advice. Or whatever it is, but you need to have the marketing and you need to have the software aspect, or you're going to get eaten alive by other businesses that are actually doing that. So the gym business was kind of one location till 2016. And then we went a little bit crazy. So we bought a cryotherapy clinic because the owner of it was just not kind of saying, hey, this is not really working. So we bought that, and then we opened 3 more locations. So we opened a gym in basically October of 2016, and then another one in December, and then another one in January. So from October 2016 to January or February of 2017, we went from one business to 5 businesses. And then that obviously really expanded the skill set. Now we weren't looking after just one gym, we're running ads for 4 gyms and the cryotherapy clinic. Our expenses and everything grew kind of 4 or 5 fold. And then we also brought on business partners, and that was kind of that strategy unlock that we got from the past mentors of how to actually unlock equity, and the way that we sold the businesses, we sold shares in those businesses to fast track the growth, and then their investment would be their first year salary. And that's how we were able to grow quite quickly as basically 2 young kids without kind of funding or anything like that. We had the partners buy in, they owned a share in the location that they owned, and we'd help them with marketing and books, and then they'd actually run the gym as kind of an owner manager. So it was a really clean model, and back then there wasn't a lot of competition, but obviously as time went on, there was more and more entrants into the markets. F45 was going crazy, and there was a few other entrants, but that first scaling period just taught us so much about obviously time management, responsibility, and actually how to run businesses properly and set up systems and processes, because now it was beyond just me and my business partner. We had other people running the businesses, and they were running them, and we had to replicate the success, replicate the funnels, replicate the systems, replicate the marketing, replicate the sales across. So there was a lot of actually doing, but then also mentoring and teaching our business partners how to do what we do so they can replicate the same results and grow their businesses. And at that stage, things were absolutely crushing. Everyone was happy. The businesses were growing, and we look back and go, cool, like that. We had a really good core team, core partners. And obviously there's a lot of headaches. And when you do that and managing personalities, and, we had kind of the directors level meetings, and there was clashing personalities, and it was things that we had to work through. And again, that's like a skill as you go up level in business. Like you're more, you need the skill of AI growth consulting and doing that, but you also need the skill of like managing people and managing expectations and communicating with people in different ways. So that's like one of those really key unlocks that I got from the gym business, was actually like, okay, cool, how do we deal with people and, again, make sure that their business is successful, their clients are getting successful, but actually dealing with the people that are running it. And, in the gym business, there's early mornings, late nights, long hours. Like, it's a challenging business. And your clients are generally people that are irrational, right? Humans are irrational. So you're dealing with clients that are trying to lose weight or trying to get ready for their wedding or trying to have a baby or all these things. So you've got that extra layer of complexity, but that is the same with any business. So then we kind of kept at the 4 locations in the gyms until kind of mid 2017, and then we looked at a couple more locations. So we opened a location in New Zealand, and then we opened another 2, and then we got it to the point where we had the 7 locations, and that's when we actually started working with Hormozi and Gym Launch. So we were one of the first businesses in Australia to run the Gym Launch model, and it was epic. We were getting super cheap leads, and that kind of taught me, again, how to scale the processes and look at the businesses differently. And back then when Hormozi was in Gym Launch, it was epic. He was on the calls every day. You could speak to him, and I've got DMs from him back in the day where we were just kind of talking about different things. And it was a really cool experience, and obviously to see how far he's grown and how he just nailed that one thing, and then has gone broader and broader and broader, very similar to Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins was a hypnotist first, and then he kept going and scaling it out. So that's a bit of advice there. If you're looking at your kind of offer, it's start very niched, and then as you get the experience and you get the trophies and you get the wins and you get the runs on the board, then you start scaling it out. Whereas I see so many guys trying to do everything at once, and they just don't have the resume to do that in terms of the wins, the skills, and the trophies of getting past client results. So working with Hormozi was fucking epic. It was a really good experience, and the way that they operated Gym Launch was unreal. It was great for our businesses, and we scaled them up even further from there. And that's kind of when we were hitting those kind of $200,000, $300,000 months, was when we were kind of in that Gym Launch system, because we were able to recuperate our ad spend basically on day one, and then kind of just keep on scaling. So that was kind of 2018, which was the same time I started raising money for different businesses. And then I also kind of went to LA for 4 or 5 months, and worked and consulted on a blockchain project. And that was kind of when I realized, the money's great, but when you're consulting and solving way bigger problems for bigger businesses, you can just get paid a lot more. And that's kind of when my mind decided, hey, I don't know if I want to keep doing this anymore. I've got the skill sets of customer acquisition and selling and building sales teams and building companies, which is great. But then, in the gym space, you're kind of capped at, you can only train so many people, and then you've got all the leases, insurance, taxes, all those things. And that's kind of when I started to decide, hey, I actually don't really want to keep doing this. So it got kind of to mid 2019, and me and my business partner both decided at that stage he'd had to go over to New Zealand and work on the New Zealand business, because our business partner in New Zealand, she wanted out. So then when he went over there, and then we're kind of running all the businesses in 2019, and then we kind of realized, hey, we both are kind of done with this. So that's when we started exiting out. So we kind of sold a few back to our partners, and then we sold a few off privately to different people that were looking to invest into a gym business, and they bought it and took it off our hands. So again, learning that exit process and dealing with business brokers and negotiating payment terms, and it just, again, added to that skill set. And that's what I kind of believe in your 20s. You want to be just adding as many skills as possible. When you don't have mortgages, you don't have partners and kids, and if you do, you can still do it. But you don't, if everything goes bad, there's no one else relying on you. And your cost base is so low, right? I had rent, which was $300 a week, and that was basically about it. And like, again, going through that process of selling businesses, and you just learn so many skills that you can't learn in a textbook or like watching stuff online, right? You actually like learn by doing. And I'm very fortunate that I actually did the shit and just picked up so many skills from doing it. So in the kind of gym business, like as kind of 2019 rolled around, we sold a couple of gyms in 2019, and then 2020, so Valentine's Day of 2020 was when we kind of exited out of everything, and that was kind of right before COVID. And again, the business model taught me a lot in terms of like agency. Basically for the gyms, I was the marketing agency for the gyms, doing all the creative, the copy, the ads, the automations, the everything. And that was my role in the gyms, and we had people helping, but like in terms of strategy and making sure it worked, that was kind of my role. So I learned a lot around the agency, and I also hired 10 agencies in that process, and not one of them can kind of beat my cost per lead, which was disappointing. But that's kind of where I realized like most business owners have had a bad experience with agencies, and what you want to do is like position yourself differently. And that's why I tell my clients to position themselves as AI growth consultants instead of agencies, because again, every business owner has had a bad experience with an agency, and it's like, how are you different? And again, how you position it is the easiest way to do it. So 2020 rolled around, and then kind of COVID happened, and we exited out of the gyms and out of the cryotherapy clinic, and then kind of I just started dabbling. I bought a bunch of crypto when it crashed in March of 2020, and then from that period I was kind of looking at the next thing. So I kind of dabbled with a lot of things. Started a automation agency called Automation King, and that's when we were using Go High Level. So we're using Go High Level back in May of 2020. So I've seen a lot of evolution from it. I kind of partnered with a couple of guys I know, and we're kind of doing a consumables import-export business where we'd have contacts in China and we'd sell the stuff locally. So we're doing stickers and meat trays and wrapping and all weird and wonderful things that I never thought I'd get into. So yeah, I kind of learned that process of like dealing with people, the longer sales cycles. But a really interesting thing that I've taken from that was you want to be dealing with people that are feeling the pain and have the credit card in their pocket or the ability to pay, right? So when I was doing the procurement business, I was kind of speaking to like the owners of the supermarkets and the owners of the chains, and then they would hand me off to a procurement manager. And the thing about that procurement manager is like I kind of said at the start, is they're just getting paid for that job. So if you go and save their boss $100, $200, $300,000 a year, they don't see anything of it, and it's just more work for them to change. So again, when you're selling like your services and your systems and your consulting, is you want to work with the people that actually have the pain, that are experiencing the pain on every day, and they also have the credit card and not going to hand you off, because that's where like sales cycles get very long, which is fine because they're generally bigger deals. But like at the start, you just want to work with businesses that feel the pain every day and have the ability to pay you and get their credit card out of their back pocket, or, do the Apple Pay now, and you can work with them. So that's like a really key thing that I learned from that business. And yeah, learned from that business. And then in like kind of process, obviously I'd run ads for 50 or 60 different clients. So kind of after the gym phase, I was just working with different business owners, and I was doing the same thing. I was doing $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month. But I realized to actually like get change and grow revenue, it just takes a lot more work than a like $1,500 a month or $2,000 a month retainer, right? And that's kind of the biggest problem I see AI agency guys do, is they like charge these small retainers and they actually have to do a shitload of work. And that's fine, but there is a massive constraint on what you can actually do and how much you can embed yourself into these businesses. Whereas now with clients, I charge kind of $10,000, $15,000 a month, and I'm working with the founder. I have buy-in from them, I have buy-in from the team, and we can actually get epic results. Because again, one, I feel valued, and I'm not like going and chasing, 10 grand is like $1,500 a month retainers, or $2.5 grand a month retainers, right? So by charging high ticket and actually working, you can, one, employ team, two, you get buy-in, and three, you're not actually getting the churn, so you're not constantly selling, right? Like the average retainer duration now in an agency, I read something, it's like 2 to 3 months. So you're just constantly churning, and that takes like a mental toll, physical toll, morale toll. Like you're just constantly starting again. Whereas if you work with clients for the long term, you can actually get epic result because you're like embedded into their business and you're actually growing with them. The part where like I just taught so many people, whether it was training or my business partners or like this, like the salespeople that we had, the gyms or whatever, it's like when you teach something to someone, you actually really understand it. And that's kind of what I've realized in this kind of last 3 years where I've been running the consulting offer and actually like helping with the done for you for actual businesses. It's like teaching the business owners or the sales people or the setters or like teaching their team or their VAs or whatever it is, you actually like learn it and like kind of clarify your thoughts, which I find is super powerful in that process. So now we're kind of, we're at kind of 2022, 2023, and then obviously October of 2022 is when ChatGPT came out. And one of the reasons like the agency offer really struggled is like, it just takes a lot of time, right? Like, so say if you're doing Facebook ads for someone, you do the ads, you do the copy, you got to do the email automations, like you've got to do all the write-ups, you got to do all of these things, all the text messages, all that kind of shit, right? And that's why I never really like went down that path because I could see how much work it took. Because obviously running 7 lots of ads for gyms, you had to do like 7 lots of ad copy, 7 campaigns, 7 email automations, change this, change that. And I was like, there's just so much work. And there's only like so far you can copy paste. Whereas then when AI came along, it's like it gives you leverage on those low level tasks. And then I kind of learned kind of AI database reactivation. I was like, yeah, this is actually really cool. I posted up on my Facebook page and I got my first client from my first post. Because obviously people had known me from the ads and from the gyms and from the scale. And I was like, hey, this is the problem that we had. We generated 25,000 leads over the 6 years, which I think is about 11 leads a day, every day for 6 years. So we had that, and then we had obviously a speed to lead issue. So I created a post about that, and then that's how I kind of got my first client. And that's when I realized, hey, there's actually some legs on this AI stuff, and like the first movers and my first clients, like, yeah, let's do it. From there, I just kind of started working with a lot of gyms, and like the cool thing is that it was just like replicable. I could just create the agent once, change a few things, deploy it, $5 grand, $5 grand, $5 grand, $5 grand, which is kind of how I scaled the offer out. And that's what I see the advantage in kind of like if you are running like an AI agency, which I don't recommend, do AI growth consulting instead, is like build the offer once and then scale it out to multiple different businesses. That's why I said at the start, is like actually get really competent in that one thing, because then you can charge higher prices, know their business better than they have, and you're not replicating the work over and over. Which is the problem with like general agency work, is that you're like constantly starting afresh and constantly doing the same thing over and over and like customizing it everywhere. Whereas with this model, you can build it once and sell it as many times as possible, and you can cook up some fat profits in the process. So that's kind of like that point of difference, and that's where you can kind of like actually vertically integrate into the business. So like with clients, you're generally going to help them in like 5 buckets, right? The 5 buckets are lead gen, lead nurture, sales, delivery, retention. That's the 5 like easy buckets of businesses, and then you can obviously go a bit deeper, but like they're the 5 that are easiest to like scale in. So again, generally like what we do as AI growth consultants is we're going to help them with lead gen, and I have something called the 4D demand matrix: warm outbound, cold outbound, content, and ads. So like they're the 4 ways you can get clients or customers, and you kind of want a blend of all. And you know, ads are becoming content and content's becoming ads now. So like they're 4 distinct things, but they're kind of all interlinked. And then you're going to help them with that lead gen, right? Then lead nurture, that's like setting up their CRM, setting up sequences, and actually like nurturing it. And you'd be surprised outside of like the online internet marketer game, how many businesses don't even have like an email sequence for when someone signs up to their website, or they don't even get back to them, right? Like I did another video previously, and like in the construction industry, it's about a 47-hour time from when someone's opted in to someone contacts, and you can wonder why like so many leads go to waste, right? After 5 minutes, your likelihood of closing the sale decreases like 100x, which is absolutely crazy. And that's a study out of MIT. So when we're looking at like this different model, it's like actually be a growth consultant and like vertically integrate into their business and solve the next problem. Because if you solve the lead gen problem, well, then they're gonna have a lead nurture problem. Solve the lead nurture problem, they're gonna have a sales problem. Or if you're getting more sales than they used to, then they're gonna have a delivery problem. So like, how do you actually deliver at scale? And then if you've got a delivery problem, well, now you've got a retention problem, upsells, cross-sells, and actually like looking at their business and how to make them a shitload of money. Because if you make a business $1 million, like it's not unreasonable for you to make 100 grand in the process, right? And that's kind of how I look at it. If you can like help a business 10x their money on you, well, then that is a great investment, and people are going to take that every day of the week. And that's kind of how we look at like our high ticket retainers, is like you're looking at like ongoing solving the problems and communicating with your clients, like what is the next problem to solve. And like, you know, one of my clients paid me $150,000, $160,000 over 12 months, because it was like we kept solving the next thing. We built websites, ads, CRMs, like school groups. Like we built so many different things for them. So there was like the next problem that needed to be solved, the next problem that needed to be solved. And then I actually like hired my replacement for them, right? So like I've got all these skills that I've done, and I went out and created like a hiring, interviewed them, did like all the interview questions, trial tasks, all that kind of shit. And I actually found my replacement who's going to help like just directly with like kind of content and content strategy and copywriting and stuff like that. So again, by being really useful to businesses, they will continue to pay you. Whereas if like you can't deliver a result and you can't actually structure your offer in a way that makes them more money, you're always going to struggle. And that's why like vendors that are selling like voice AI and shit like that, they just struggle because voice AI is like $300 a month. And I even like had a client who like I'm building one for them, and they're like, oh, like why is it $500 a month? I was like, look, Mr. Client, the reason it's $500 a month is I know there's going to be things that you want to change, and you're going to agree with the thing that I build. And then after the fact, you're going to ask me to hit you up, and I'm going to charge you $500 an hour for support. And I can charge you the $100 a month or $200 a month like everyone else, but like, are you going to go and fix it? And he's like, oh, no. So basically, like the $500 a month is you're prepaying for my time to make sure it's right all the time. And they go, oh, okay, cool. So like that's just like one of those little things. Like it was 10 grand to build, and then I said it's a family friend, so I did say, hey, it's going to be 500 a month instead of 1,000. But I know what's involved, right? Whereas if you're charging like $100 or $200 a month, you don't want to go and fix it. You don't want to make it better. You don't want to actually make it a really good result for your client, because you don't feel like you're getting the value from your client. So it's this really bad cycle. Whereas if you charge high prices, you can deliver better results. You can hire people to help you, and then you can actually scale your business that way, right? So like there is the magic in high pricing is you can actually charge what you're worth and actually deliver what you promise, which is fucking business 101. So now like in like the business, and that kind of brings us to the current day, like I've probably worked with 25, 30 different businesses on like specific AI consulting and AI growth consulting. And that's kind of where I see the vision of like the business moving forward is just keep working with bigger clients and solving bigger problems, and then I get paid more in the process, right? If I help companies unlock $1 billion or $10 billion worth of value, so if I help companies unlock $10 billion worth of value, it is not unreasonable for me to make $1 billion from that process. And that's kind of what I'm optimizing for. It's like keep working with bigger companies inside of my actual like growth consultancy. So I'm not like one of those gurus that doesn't actually work with clients and helps build and do that kind of shit and like sells you on the idea of making money with AI, which like that's kind of what most of them do, right? They will sign like a client or two and then say, this is how I made all this money with AI. They've never really run a business, they've never really run an agency, and then they sell you on the fact that they sold a few clients, and then they use the screenshots from you paying 5 or 10 grand to their info business to say, this is how I do AI, right? And like I've seen it, I'm a bit of an OG in the game. I've been in the internet marketing game for like 12, 15 years and worked with a lot of different people, and I'm like, that's actually what happens. So when I see like the vision for like my company is it's like building epic shit for epic companies and just keep going up the food chain, right? Keep working with bigger companies, working with an investment fund that's got $1 billion under management. So if I help them raise $1 billion, I'll get paid $1.5 million. And you don't get that from like, just those traditional kind of info businesses, whereas one client can be worth $1.5 million. So it's in my best interest to actually do a epic fucking job. So again, when the incentives are aligned in your business with your clients' businesses, that's where you actually grow, and that's how you actually have like a big vision for the future if you keep moving up, right? And so many people get stuck doing the same thing over and over again, and I've seen it like with people, they just live the same year in, year out, whereas you want to constantly growing, constantly moving to bigger challenges and again, bigger clients, and that's what's going to help you grow. So speaking of growth, like if you're earlier on the path, there's only really 4 skills that you need to master, and this is really what I want you to kind of take away from this video. So the 4 skills are like kind of copywriting. So that's creating emotion with a written word. It's the oldest way, but like if you can get someone to read something and get them to take action, then you are on the path to making way more money, right? In the world of AI slop and M dashes, and it's not this, it's that fucking rubbish that you see every day on the newsfeed, actually learning how to write copy that persuades people, gets them to take action, you're going to be so far ahead of the competition, because the competition, like I said in the gym game, it is saturated but not competitive, and everyone is lazy as fuck. So learn copywriting. The next skill is ads. And yeah, you can make money with content, and there's like a few guys that make a bunch of money with content telling you how to use content to make money and not actually making money with their content. But again, that is a different story. So learning how to run ads and learning how to turn $1 in ad spend into $2 or $3 or $4 or $5 basically means you become the casino and you become the house, and the house always wins. So we've got copywriting, we've got ads. The next thing that you need to learn is sales. And again, sales is not an evil word. Sales is leadership, getting people to do the things that are right for them, persuading them, influencing them, and helping them have a better outcome. And in terms of sales, the only reason people ever buy something is to make tomorrow better. So they're in the current state, they've got the desired state, and whatever it is that you're offering helps them achieve that. So that is skill number 3. And then the 4th skill is tech. So like that is a kind of overarching thing, but think about like systems, automations, AI, all of that. You need to understand that to compete in the new age. Yeah, like tech's not going away anywhere, and it's completely embedded in our life. And by you learning it, you're going to put yourself so far ahead. Like I learned automations and Zapier like literally back in 2013. So when AI came around, and that was kind of like the first bite, and you had to get an API key and do this and do that and records and domains and all that kind of shit. I just done it before. And if you're watching this at kind of early 20s or 30s or even like in your 40s, learning those 4 skills is going to push you ahead of literally 99% of people. And I don't promise they're going to be easy, but by learning them, you'll be able to like make sure your income is uncapped, make as much money as you want, charge what you want, and actually like create that life of freedom but like what this is all about. So yeah, that's the story. That's kind of how I went from kind of selling hats on Facebook to becoming a personal trainer. There was a lot involved, and I'm sure I missed some things. I didn't really speak about Shark Tank, but that was a hell of a story, and I'm sure I will catch that on another video. So thank you for the time and attention, and I will catch you on the next one.